and I am so excited and delighted that he's here with us today at Dublin Tech Summit. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Casey Neistat.
Good to be here in Dublin. Wow, there's so many people here. Let me start by asking who's in the audience right now. So who here is in some capacity works in the world of technology, making who's like in the world of or aspires to be in the world of social media, YouTubers or anything like. Okay, and then entrepreneur, like consider yourself a... Okay, who's everybody else? All right, well, that's helpful. Thank you for that. So I wanted to come and share with you guys today a little bit about more specifically about my journey as a technologist and as an entrepreneur. And there's no really separating that from my life and my career as a YouTuber. They're sort of one and the same. But it's definitely something that I focus on a lot less in the content that I make. I think, so much of the themes that I tackle in the videos that I make are about specifically what I've done in the world of media. But I could have never done what I do either on YouTube or anywhere else where I create had it not been for my experiences both as an entrepreneur, someone who loves to start and build new things, and what I've been able to do and embrace in the world of technology. So it's hard to tell this story without going all the way back. I had like a challenging childhood, a challenging upbringing, a lot of missteps, and when I was like late in my teenage years, it was probably like peak life struggle for me. It was when I had nothing. It was when I was at my absolute dirt poorest. I lived in a caravan. I had a baby. I had no education at all. I had left school. I was washing dishes. But that was when I first interacted with video. My big brother had like the very first iMac. You remember those ones that were like goofy colors and they sort of looked like a toilet on its side? You know what I'm talking about? It's got like an 11-inch screen, 10 gigabyte hard drive. No one knows. You don't remember that? Had like the commercial where they're like spinning a circle. Okay. It was the first time I ever played with video. It was the first computer they sold that was marketed towards consumers who want to edit video. And I like immediately fell in love. It was the most liberating experience of my life. Like all of a sudden, me, someone who, especially in my like formative, youthful years, I was one of 3 kids, and there was the firstborn, and then the sister who was the prettiest, and then my baby brother, and I was sort of in the middle, so I always had to make the most noise to be heard. And then I never did well in school. I didn't do well in school at all. The teachers were always angry at me. I was always in trouble. So I always felt like I was kind of being suppressed, like I was never able to really share what I was thinking. And then the first time I ever played with video, all of a sudden it felt like a way of sharing my perspective. It was like a way of taking my voice and turning it into something tangible, which was a video. And I fell in love immediately. And all my first round of camera gear, which was like a camera that costs over $1,000 and has the resolution of has 1/4 the resolution of a really bad cell phone. And then that computer, and I bought it, and that was when I started making videos, and I immediately fell in love. And I think, when I think of the biggest inflection points in my own career, that was like one of the biggest ones. And in retrospect now, looking back, like at that moment in my life, and I look back now as a very, very, very old man. I turned 37 a couple weeks ago, just crippling age. And when I look back, it's like, one truth that I realize in life is that there are really only 2 things you should be doing. If you consider yourself a driven person, a passionate person, there's only 2 things you should be doing. One is figuring out what it is you want to do, like finding your passion, finding your dream. What is it that you want to do? And then number 2 is realizing it. And now in retrospect, in success, I'm able to tell you for a fact, figuring it out, like that step 1, which just seems so easy and novel, that is by far the hardest thing to do. And I think most people most people that I interact with, most people in life, aren't as lucky as I was to stumble upon my passion so early in life. By the way, that one-step, two-step, to flesh that out a little bit more, the reason why I think the hard part is figuring out what you want to do and the easy part is just doing it is because if it is something that truly drives you, like whatever that was, that fire that lit inside of me when I first played with video on a computer, there was no turning that switch off. I felt about it then at age 18 or 19, living in a trailer, like with no money, with no prospects in life. I was as passionate, as excited in that very moment as I am like an hour ago shooting videos here in Dublin before one of the thugs that works here at Dublin Tech Summit was like, "Where are you? You're supposed to be here an hour ago." And I'm like, "I'm making videos." Like it has never faded for me. It is it is something that just excites me to no end. It's like when I see an old rocker, when I see Mick Jagger playing music with the same kind of passion he had when he was in his 20s and the 60s playing music. That's what it felt like. And to have that is a really elusive thing. A really elusive thing. I look at the people that I know that are happiest. I look at my dad. I look at my friends. And they all have jobs. And the jobs are a way for them to sort of, their job like most people have jobs. They make ends meet and it's a necessity of life. And they're happy in a million ways. But for whatever reason, they never had that, whether you call it fortuitous, lucky, or unlucky moment in life where they found something that made them absolutely possessed, something that took over who they were. And for me, it was at that moment that it was like whatever it takes in life. And I think, as it pertains specifically to technology, I at that moment, making movies meant one thing and one thing only. And that was to make a movie that played in a movie theater. People come in, sit like you sit, you watch in the theater, you click play, movie starts playing. That's what it meant to be a filmmaker. Sundance Film Festival, Cannes Film Festival, NYU Film School. Like, this is the only thing I understood filmmaking to be. And another point in my life where I got really, really, really lucky was the fact that I started making movies at this exact point in the world of technology, in the world of media, where the entire landscape of media started to shift so radically. So I remember, like, my first, I just to fast forward, I moved to New York City with, like, nothing. It was just, like, once my girlfriend dumped me, I was like, I'm out. Like, I don't need it. There's no reason to stay here in this small town. I'm chasing it. I'm moving to New York City. I went to New York City with, like, $800, no place to live, and a 2-year-old kid, and I was like, I'll reach for the stars. Like, I'm going to do it. And I moved to New York City, and it was tough. And it was a struggle that it was unimaginable for me prior to actually having lived it. But my first success, the first real, like, taste of the power of using the internet and leveraging new technology was when I had a movie go viral in 2003. And just to, like, paint a little bit of a picture for you guys, especially those of you under the age of, like, 30, this is viral before Twitter, viral before Facebook, viral before any social media. This is when the word viral meant, like, what happens to an STD in a frat house on a college campus. Like, viral was not used to describe movies then. Like, this was something that was crazy. Like, what it literally took was you'd have to watch this video that I posted on a splash page, a website, because YouTube wasn't born for 3 more years. Get it, like, cut the URL, copy, start an email, type out all the addresses of people that you want to send it to, put it in the message box with a funny thing that says, LOL, haha, watch this, click send. And then just hope everybody does that. Like, the idea of a movie going viral was such a foreign thing. But here it was, I made this little movie, and all of a sudden it was seen 5 million times. And I start doing the math in my head, and I'm like, wow, if I had a feature film that was seen that many times, it would have to be on the level of, like, a gigantic Hollywood movie. And this movie cost me $40. Like, for no money. I just made a little movie that was fun and pretty stupid movie. It's a really stupid movie. But it reached this massive audience. And that's when it really occurred to me at that moment, like, my passion, that drive was so much more driven to using this medium as a way to communicate ideas and perspectives than it was to the formality, the mechanical part of making movies. And that's why I say it ad nauseum, and I'll say it my whole life, my whole career, the gear doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what tools you're using to share your ideas or share your perspectives. It's just getting them out there. And if you can share in a way that connects with people, you will break through. That movie, by the way, was called iPod's Dirty Secret. And the story behind that was I was still really, really broke in 2003 when I dropped that movie. I mean, like I had nothing. But my prized possession was the first generation iPod. To the old people in the room, do you remember the first generation iPod? It was like the size of a brick. It was the size of a pack of cigarettes. And the wheel on it would like mechanically turn, like tick, 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 tick. Remember that one? And it was $400. And when the thing died, after I had it for a year and a half, and I called Apple and I was like, hey, will you change the battery out for me? They said it was their policy to recommend to their customers just to buy an entirely new device. And I totally lost my cool. I was so angry. I was so angry that this was their policy that I called back and I tape recorded the phone call. And then I went around and much like how in the box, the back of a box of cigarettes, there's that warning at the bottom that's like, if you smoke this, you will die. I went around and put those warnings on every iPod poster, every iPod advertisement in New York City. And on the bottom it said, I would spray paint on the bottom with this beautiful stencil I made that said, iPod's dirty secret, or iPod's unreplaceable battery lasts only 18 months. That's kind of a disclaimer. And I videotaped that. So the whole video was not a good video. The whole video was just me calling Apple, them saying buy a new one, and then me spray painting a disclaimer on every poster in town with a really dope hip-hop track under it. And that's what did 5 million views. Like, that's what broke through. So, like, I think this talk today is called How to Be Heard. I certainly didn't know the day before that video went live that was how you'd be heard. And looking back, I still don't really understand how that transpired. But I know for me, it wasn't anything, there was no magic to it. Like, that was the first time where no one had ever seen anything I'd ever made, unless I forced you to sit down and click play, which I did do with all my friends. But besides those 8 people, this was the first time I ever broke through to a really big audience. And it was a confluence of a number of factors, and a number of factors that I could have never prescribed to you or explained prior to doing it. It's like even now when I work with brands and I work with companies and their request is, will you make us a viral film? I end the conversation right there and I'm like, look, I have no idea how to make a viral movie. I have no clue how to make a viral movie. I can try my best to make a really good movie. That I can deliver on. I don't know how to make a viral movie. And so much of my career has been built on the pillars of these viral videos, my YouTube success. Before I ever started vlogging was just viral movie after viral movie. Yet I never knew. There is no formula. If there is a formula, by the way, I think that it would have been figured out and then duplicated, and everybody would just do that. So there really is no formula to that kind of virality. But I had it. And in 2003, after that video exploded, it opened all kinds of doors for me in places that I couldn't have really imagined. In some interesting places, some weird places, some opportunities that didn't make a lot of sense. I was hired by like a public access, like a very, very small cable news network to cable television network to make some local content for them. I didn't know what any of that meant. I just said yes, because a good rule of thumb earlier in your career is just keep saying yes until they hand you the check. And that's what I did. And they hired me to do something. I didn't really understand it. So I went out with my brother and we made a complete... That was great. I don't think I even delivered a punchline. So I didn't know. I didn't really understand the assignment. I didn't understand what I was supposed to be doing. So my brother Van and I went out and did we just kind of screwed off. We made something that we thought was funny, and we ignored what we thought the client wanted. And when we handed that in, they were like, this is fantastic. And it was that opportunity. After they loved what we made, it was the owner of that company turned to my brother and me and was like, hey, do you want to do something bigger? If I were to get involved with you and do something bigger than just this small one-off deal, what would that look like? And this was like, looking back, I always see there's like these moments that really define. Deciding to make that iPod movie, which was really stupid and not a great movie, that was one of these defining moments. And when that guy, his name's Tom Scott, he's a brilliant entrepreneur, when he turned to me and said, is there something bigger you want to do? That was one of those moments. And what we pitched him was this. It was like, hey, why don't you just bankroll us, cover all of our expenses for a year, and let us make a bunch of little movies? Is that not the fucking dream right there? But he seemed amenable. I mean, this is a guy who was offering us a huge opportunity after we had done nothing but delivered on something that was nothing like what he hired us for. So it was like, maybe I want to take a chance. And he said, sure, let's do it.
Let's go.
And come on, man, you're interrupting my talk right now. No, this is not cool. I'll not let you have virality or something off of that. No. Take a walk.
Love you, Casey. Love you.
Boo. One thing that I will say is I've tried my very best never to find success or opportunities in my career by climbing over the shoulders of others. That's what you call throwing shade. So he said sure. So he said sure. Let's do it. Let's do it. And by the way, him bankrolling us for a year was very, very little amount of money. It was literally just enough so we wouldn't have to worry about rent. We're not talking about millions of dollars here. It was something small. And what we did then was all we knew how to do, which was make these tiny little movies. And this is 2007. But now in 2018, I would describe them as essentially YouTube movies. Like, that's what we were doing, but we didn't know what they were. It was just the only thing we knew how to do. So we made these little videos, and he would come once a month and check on us just to make sure we weren't completely blowing off this huge deal that we made with him. And he loved the content. And about 6 months in, he walked into our office with this, like, very smart, big deal movie producer. And it was like nerve-wracking. Her name was Christine Vachon, by the way. She's an Oscar award-winning producer. She's an incredible, just, like, brilliant mind in the world. And she watched the content. And I remember she, like, didn't say anything, which is, like, the worst thing somebody can do. You know, if somebody's like, oh, this sucks, you're like, maybe I'll try harder. And if somebody's like, this is great, you're like, yeah, high five, like that. But if someone says nothing is the scariest thing. And she said nothing. And then when it was over, she turned and looked at us and she goes, I think that was very good. But wait, let's perspective. She didn't say, I think that was very good. She said, I think that was very good. Like she wasn't, it was more like, what the hell did I just watch? And she came back to us and she gave us this piece of advice. She was like, take all of those little movies and figure out how to put them together in a consumable way. Like, make it so you can actually watch them. And we're like, okay. So that's exactly what we did. We took all these little pieces of a movie. We made them 20 minutes long. We put an intro at the beginning and we put credits at the end. And then we were like, this is now a TV show. You laugh, and so did every single TV network we brought it to. I remember one network was like, if you don't find anywhere else to put it, we'll put it on our website. And that was like the most painful thing to hear. It was like, ugh, defeat. But that woman, Christine Vachon, she showed it to HBO. And I remember her calling, and we were like, hey, how'd the meeting go? And she said they liked it. And I just remember I was like, she's a restrained woman. That has to mean something. They liked it. And at the end, HBO bought that show for like a couple $1 million. And that was like the big break. That was our big success. Don't applaud. That was our big success. You guys weren't going to applaud anyways. But we had done it. Like, that was it. That was the victory. It was 2008. Like, climb on top of the mountaintop. Like, we did it. And then nothing happened. Like, they sat on the show for 2 years. And when it finally aired 2 years later, they played it on a Friday night at midnight. Can you imagine what this audio size would be like if my videos were only watchable at midnight on Friday nights? It'd be me and that guy with the phone. That's it. just the two of us. And it was a failure. Like, it got cool reviews. People were like, this is an interesting concept. No one watched it. And that was crushing. That was heartbreaking. And it was in the ashes of that I was like, I'm just going to do this on YouTube. I'm just going to do this on YouTube. And I think the ultimate irony is that if you go back and you watch my HBO series, you'll see it feels and looks exactly like the content that I now call a vlog, the content that does 2 million views a day, every single day. It's the same thing. So I bring that long story up because that's been a huge learning of my own career, which is that technology actually provided the opportunity. Like, my desire and the thing that the creative outlet that has excited me since the beginning, which is making this little videos, it didn't have a place. And when I say, like, I'm the luckiest guy, I'm lucky because I was born at this time that provided this huge opportunity that I could have never imagined. It was only because of YouTube that I found a home for this work. I was on HBO. I was on, like, the biggest deal there could be, and nobody watched it, didn't find its home. So again, like, another lesson, if you're trying to break through, it's about finding that sort of alignment that, in the startup world, you call it product market fit. And I had a great product. I thought it was great. The people at HBO thought it was great enough to write that check, and they put it on HBO, and the market wasn't right. There was no fit. There was no alignment. But on YouTube, there was this tremendous alignment, this explosive alignment. After the HBO series came out, I focused only on YouTube. And I made sort of one movie a month was my goal, and these movies got a lot of attention. And I built a really cool business around that attention, which was basically let me focus everything on making this little YouTube video and have it be as explosive as possible and have it sort of highlight what it is that I love doing. And then because of that, brands would get in touch and they'd work with the companies that I work with, and I'd find these opportunities to direct television commercials. And that's how I'd pay the rent. And it was a good enough living, and it was a great living because I got to have fun, but I made just enough money to pay the bills, and it was exciting. It was a real, it felt like I was doing something substantive after the boondoggle that I felt the HBO show was. But ultimately, that got a little boring, and then I wanted to change it up, and I wanted to just to instead of having brands hire me to make TV commercials, what if I just worked with brands that wanted to hire me to make YouTube videos, like the content that they were excited about in the very first place? When I pitched that idea in 2011, what I'm describing to you now we know as branded content, but I pitched it in 2011, everyone was like, it doesn't work like that. And the company I worked with was like, it doesn't work like that. So I stopped working with them, and I sort of put it out that this is what I wanted to do. And the first bite, the first nibble after I cast that line was Nike, which is Nike is a shoe Nike, great company. And they called me, and they're like, hey, would you make a couple videos for us? We have this idea. And I was like, great. So the deal I made with Nike was to make 3 videos. They'd go on my YouTube channel. They were my videos. They could be what I wanted. So great. So I wrote them the scripts. We call them treatments in the industry, which is essentially a very short script of exactly what the creative's going to be. They sign off on it, say this is wonderful, go do it. They sent me the budget. Great. I made the first 2 videos. They were perfect. They were very happy with them. They're very conservative and safe, and everybody was feeling good. But those first 2 videos took 3 months to make, and I was a little exhausted. And when it came time to make the 3rd video, I came up with this idea. And the idea was to, well, it had nothing to do with Nike, but the idea was to realize this crazy dream that I've always had, which was, what if you just go to the nearest airport and get on the next flight out of town? And wherever that flight takes you, you go to that place and you embrace it until you're bored. Then you go to that airport and you go to the next town on the next flight out. And then you just keep doing that until you completely run out of money. Seemed like a really cool idea. So I called my editor, as my best friend, Maxie, and I was like, Maxie, what do you think of this idea? And he's like, that sounds cool. What about the Nike thing? And I was like, they already sent us the budget, so. And then we went to the airport, and we did it. And we flew around the world, and it was wild, and it was exciting. We came back, we had 40 hours of footage. We had no idea how to turn that into a Nike commercial, so we didn't, and we just failed and failed and failed. And the Nike executive showed up in my office, which is a huge deal, because his office is 3,000 miles away from my office. And it was like came from downtown. It was like that was crushing. That was a crushing moment when I was clicking play, showing him clips, and he's like, I could feel him over me, watching the video. I could hear him breathing, feel it on my neck. I just looked up at him, and he just had this look of not anger, disappointment. I was like, fuck. And we missed all of our deadlines. This was a big deal. Had I not delivered on this, my relationship with Nike would have gone away, and Nike's the biggest and the best in the industry. This whole thesis of having somebody who makes little videos like me work with companies on little videos, it would have evaporated. It was consequential. And in the end, after missing every deadline, we sent them the video. And the video literally had 0 Nike products in it. Slight overlook. It was a mistake. But I remember he saw it and he was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this video is, but I've been passing it around and we really like it. Why don't you just go ahead? It was a little we'll go ahead and release it on your channel and let's see what happens. And that's what I did. I put it on my YouTube channel at a time when my YouTube channel had about 100,000 subscribers. And the video just exploded. It went nuts. It was everywhere. It was the most watched video that Nike had ever released on the internet. Everywhere. And Nike was having to give records on, or give statements on the record. And the CEO of Nike called me and he was like, Casey, my assistant was watching your video. And I stood over her shoulder and watched the whole thing. And I realized I need to get out more. I was like, cool story, bro. Smashing success. And then immediately this little company that I had where I would bankroll making videos by doing commercials that I didn't really want to do changed overnight. And all of a sudden now I was doing branded content. And it was easy. Every time a company would call, which was enough to keep me alive, every time they'd call, they'd be like, hey, will you do for us what you did for Nike? And I'm like, sure, send a check. And that's how it worked. And I could only make that video once, so I'd find fresh campaigns and ideas to work with these companies on, but it was always about giving me the latitude I needed to embrace the sort of creative work that I'd make without a company, but do it with the resources that they present. It was a very successful company, and I rode that wave for several years. But then I did get exhausted. I was tired of hearing, do for us what you did for Nike. So I wanted a change. I wanted a big change. And that's when I was invited. I got a phone call first, and it was a very, very big deal, I remember. It was from the Sundance Institute. And the Sundance Institute is a nonprofit entity that's part of the Sundance Film Festival. They support all kinds of initiatives. And this initiative was a partnership between the Rockefeller Foundation, which is a philanthropic organization in the States, and MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, arguably one of the most prestigious academic institutions in the world. And they were looking to pick a single filmmaker to go to MIT and do a fellowship in MIT's Media Lab, as in work with the technologists there, work with the people there to try to find a mutual understanding and share a mutual kind of thought process. And they selected me. Of any filmmakers in the world, they selected me. And I remember one of my first questions for them was like, why would you pick me? And they're like, well, we worked with J.J. Abrams before and we enjoyed that. And I'm like, J.J. Abrams? He did Star Wars! I make YouTube videos. But there was something about this story that I'm sharing with you now that they saw that I didn't really understand. And when I went to MIT, which was a very, very scary time for me, I'm a high school dropout. I've got no education whatsoever. It was intimidating being there. But I gave myself a singular mission, and that mission was that when I would leave MIT, I would do something completely new, something unlike anything I'd ever done before. I was sick of making these Nike rip-off videos that companies wanted. I wanted something new, and this was the opportunity that I needed. And while there, surrounded by a lot of really smart people, if ever you're given the opportunity to surround yourself with people smarter than you, always embrace that opportunity. For me, it's very easy. Very, very easy. Thanks for being here today. But I never turned down that opportunity, and there's nothing more intimidating than being at MIT. I remember my first day there, I got my chocolate milk, and I sit down, looking around, and it's all these MIT postgrads that are changing the world. I was sharing a laboratory with a guy who lost both of his legs in a mountain climbing accident. So he built new legs that are smart legs, and now he can walk and run and climb more mountains. That's the level of intellect that I was surrounded by. And honestly, I think while I was at MIT, I absorbed more than I gave back. But what I did leave there with is this idea, and it's a platitude, and it's naive to say this, but this idea that with technology, you can do anything. Anything is possible. Without seeing it firsthand, I didn't understand that. I was one of those people like my dad, where I just sort of look at my phone and it works because I just assume it works. But being there, I understood what it takes to make that happen. And after leaving MIT was when I came back to New York City and immediately started my own technology company. It was scary. It was a software development company. I've never developed software. I've still never written a line of code in my entire life. But it was something that I knew I wanted to do. It was something I had to chase down. And one thing that I realized when we were raising money is terrifying, by the way, if any of you have done it. You literally walk into the younger people in this room, when you ask your parents for not $5, $50. And it was that conversation. You have to convince them that just to give you $50 for something stupid, that's what raising capital for a startup is. Except instead of 50, it's millions. And instead of them being your parents, they're really smart people. I'm a parent. My kid thinks I'm an idiot. He's kind of got a point. But that's what fundraising was. But the one thing that every venture capitalist, whether they wrote us a check or they didn't, the one thing they always latched on to were my little movies. I remember one investor, an investor who did in the end write us a check for about $3.5 million. I remember him being excited to have you come by. Maybe you want to bring your snowboard and snowsuit and snowboard behind a car here. Whatever you say, bro. I'll be there. They latched on to my movies. They loved that. It was something that they were able to identify. And then when it came time, our company was getting closer and closer to launch, I realized the power of the videos that I could make. And I hadn't up until then. I hadn't realized the impact that they could have. And that was the very reason why I started the vlog in March of 2015, was because I needed to shine a light on what my tech company was trying to build. I needed to shine a light on why I was building it. And while I don't know how to make technology, I don't necessarily know how to run a company. I'm not a very good business leader. I do know how to tell a story. So I focused on sharing the story of what we were trying to do at Beam. those early days of trying to build a video sharing platform that you're not able to see the video. So therefore, you're only able to share truth. It was a beautiful vision. And we launched, and because of the vlog, we had a wildly successful launches, one of the biggest launches of 2015. And throughout the tenure of that company, which lasted about 19 months from filing the LLC to selling that company, within those 19 months, it was always the content that I made behind the product that always drove the product. It was always the story more than the product. And my learnings from that were huge. My learnings from that were gigantic. And I really then understood the power of a well-told story, the power of empathy, the power of sharing ideas and perspectives, the power to get a little mushy on you, like this idea that I think so much of the misunderstanding that takes place, whether we're talking geopolitically or between my wife and I, like the power of being able to communicate something and communicate it well through a story is untold. And all of the success that we had at my company, we built great products and we had an unbelievable team and all of these things. No one would have ever understood any of that. It would have been just another company operating in a vacuum had it not been for the vlog. And then I flipped that around and I said, like, had I not gone to MIT to start this technology company, I would have never had the impetus or the reason to embrace YouTube, to start the vlog. And I make no disillusions. My technology company was a smashing success in the respect that every investor saw a solid return on it. It was a smashing success in the fact that, like, we had to do incredible things. We had an acquisition. It took us to a place we could have never imagined, working with a huge company doing something really new and interesting. There was an environment that me and a couple of the other employees, we didn't do well in, but the company still went on. They're still doing great things today, and that all started because of one little morsel of an idea that happened 3 years ago, including everything I do in YouTube happened there. So it sort of brings me to where I am now. And the reason why I'm starting the company that I'm starting now, 368, is that idea first. This idea of what happens when you can tell a story well. This idea of I fucking hate this word, but influence. Influence is a terrible word. It's a horrible word because influence is the effect of making something that people first care about or engage in. So I much prefer to focus on the content than what the content can do, which is command influence. But when thinking about starting a new company, I wanted to think about just that. Like the opportunities that the content that this influence may bring are going to be myriad. So what happens if you build an entire company around embracing those opportunities? And that's what 368 is. 368, my new company, for those of you who don't know, I just launched it 15 days ago now. The ambition with that is to sort of build infrastructure that can embrace the influence that comes along with sharing meaningful content and the embracement of that influence, then figure out how to turn that into viable businesses, how to turn that into money, how to turn that into resources that benefit people, benefit creators, and then how to make that not just the Casey show, but how to scale that to a number of other creators. So on one side is a collective of individuals, of creators, doing what makes them passionate, and then the business of it is how can we take all of that passion and the influence that comes with that passion and actually monetize it in a way that benefits the companies that want to pay for it, benefits the individuals that are trying to work in that space, and eventually builds this large, scalable thesis, understanding, idea, premise for a business, leveraging technology, leveraging creativity, and certainly leveraging the desire to embrace influence, taking that beyond anything that I could do as a single creator. Guys, I've used up my 30 minutes, but don't leave. Are we doing a Q&A up here right now? We're going to do a Q&A up here right now and talk about a little bit more about the ideas that I just discussed. But before I invite them back up here, except for that one guy, thank you all for having me.
Hi, I'm Jess. I'm going to MC their discussion now.
Thank you for my intro.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for being here.
I'm so happy to be here.
So we are going to set the stage up. Please do stay with us because we are going to have a brilliant panel discussion that's going to follow on from so many of the things that Casey just touched upon. Please don't fall here.
Sorry.
Please. I feel like your mother. So many of you guys have posed questions on Twitter and I have a host of them. Casey, pretty much everyone in this room wants to work at 368. I'm just flagging that now. I have, see? They've all been, these people have been here all day just to see you. So there's a lot of love in the room for you.
I'm glad
I'm
I can deliver on that. The jobs thing is much harder.
So if everyone can keep their hands to themselves for the duration of our panel, I would be very grateful.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, Casey, if you would like to take a seat here, And
Which seat?
Or you can stand if you
Which
want.
one do you think is the best seat?
Well, this one is close to me, so winning. I'm also going to welcome on 2 other speakers who have fascinating insights on how to build a community and the power of community from very different walks of life.